The day my own family called me too much to handle was the same day I stopped trying to belong. I still remember my mother's voice, cold, tired, almost rehearsed. "We can't keep fixing your messes anymore." My father didn't even look at me. My brother just shook his head like I was some embarrassment he had to tolerate for too long. And just like that, I was out. No fight left in me, no energy to beg. Just silence and a small suitcase. The truth, I wasn't too much. I just asked too many questions. Questions about money that didn't make sense. About sudden property transfers. About why my late grandmother's house, promised to all of us, was quietly sold without a word. Every time I brought it up, they shut me down. "You're overthinking. Stop creating drama. Why can't you just be normal?" So eventually they made me the problem. I left. For months, I lived in a tiny rented room, working double shifts, learning how to survive without them. No calls. No messages. It was like I never existed. And maybe that was their plan all along. I won't lie, it hurt. Not the money, not the house, but how easily they erased me. Then one afternoon, everything changed. I got a call from a lawyer. At first, I thought it was a scam. I almost hung up. But then he said a name I hadn't heard in years, Mr. Kareem. He was our old neighbor. A quiet, kind man who used to sit outside every evening, feeding stray cats and watching the street like it was his personal storybook. We weren't close, but he always treated me differently from the rest. He listened. "Mr. Kareem passed away last month," the lawyer said gently. "And you've been named in his will." I froze. "Me?" I whispered. "Yes, you're the only beneficiary?" It didn't make sense. "Why me?" We barely spoke beyond polite conversations and occasional tea. I went to the lawyer's office the next day, confused but curious. What I found there shattered everything. Along with the will, there was a file. Thick, organized, labeled with my family's name. Inside were documents, property records, bank transfers, signed agreements. My grandmother's house, the one they claimed was sold legally, it wasn't. It had been transferred under forged signatures. My grandmother never approved it. There were also records showing the money from that sale didn't go into any shared account. It was split between my parents and my brother. Quietly. Carefully. Hidden. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the pages. And then I saw something else. Photos. Dates. Evidence. Mr. Kareem had been watching. Not in a creepy way, but in a careful, observant way. He lived right across the street. He saw people come and go. He noticed unusual meetings, overheard arguments, saw documents being exchanged late at night. And he documented everything. The lawyer looked at me and said, "He trusted you. He believed you deserved the truth." I couldn't speak. All those times my family called me dramatic, difficult. Too much. I wasn't wrong. I was the only one who saw something was off. And they got rid of me for it. The will left me something else too, a modest sum of money. Not life-changing, but enough. Enough to do what needed to be done. I didn't confront them immediately. I didn't call, didn't argue, didn't cry. I waited. I found a good lawyer. Quiet, professional, patient, just like I had learned to be. We built the case slowly. Carefully. Every document verified. Every signature examined. By the time my family received the legal notice, everything was already in motion. I still remember the first time my phone rang after months of silence. My mother. I let it ring. Then my brother. Then my father. Voicemails filled with panic, confusion, anger. "What is this? How dare you accuse us? You've gone too far this time." I listened to every message without responding. For once, I wasn't too much. I was just quiet. The investigation moved forward. The evidence was undeniable. The forged signatures. The illegal transfer. The hidden funds. They couldn't talk their way out of it this time. And the worst part for them, it wasn't public. No big scene. No shouting. No drama. Just legal letters, court dates, and the slow, suffocating realization that the person they threw away was the only one who could expose them. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. The property deal was declared fraudulent. The remaining assets were frozen. And the truth, finally, was written in official records. I didn't celebrate. I didn't go back. I didn't even meet them. Because revenge, I realized, isn't about hurting people. It's about letting the truth stand where you once stood alone. Weeks later, I visited Mr. Kareem's empty house. I sat on the same step where he used to feed the cats. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not by my family, but by someone who noticed when no one else did. They said I was too much to handle. Turns out, I was just too honest. For their night, my family changed the locks and left my suitcase outside. They thought they were finally free of me. I stood there for a long time, staring at that door like it might suddenly open again. Like someone would laugh and say, "Enough drama, come back inside." But no one did. The lights went off one by one, as if I had already been erased. Too much to handle. That's what they called me. Not because I screamed. Not because I caused trouble. But because I noticed things they wanted buried. I noticed how my grandmother's signatures looked different on those final papers. I noticed how quickly her house was sold after she passed. I noticed how every time I asked a question, the room went quiet. And then suddenly, I was the problem. So they removed me. For a while I believed them. Maybe I was difficult. Maybe I should have stayed quiet like everyone else. Life would have been easier. But silence has a cost. And I had already paid too much. Weeks turned into months. I rebuilt my life from scratch. A small job, a smaller apartment, no family dinners, no one asking how I was. It hurt, but it was peaceful, no lies. Then one day I got a letter. Not a call. Not a message. A formal letter. From a law office. At first I thought it was about debt or some mistake. My hands were shaking when I opened it. But the name inside stopped me cold. Mr. Kareem, our old neighbor. The man my family barely acknowledged, but who always greeted me with a soft smile and a simple, "You see things others ignore, don't you?" I didn't understand what he meant back then. Now I did. I went to the office the next morning. The lawyer didn't waste time. "Mr. Kareem has left you his entire estate." I blinked, confused. "There has to be a mistake." "There isn't," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "But that's not the most important part." My fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside it was the truth my family had buried. Every suspicion I ever had documented. Every question they mocked me for answered. There were copies of property transfers, my grandmother's house included. Her signature had been forged. Expert analysis attached. There were timestamps showing when documents were altered. Bank records tracing the money from the sale, split cleanly between my parents and my brother. No inheritance. No fairness. Just theft. Carefully planned. Carefully hidden. And then there were notes. Handwritten. By Mr. Kareem. Argument heard at. Daughter questioning documents again. New buyer visited late evening. Family seemed nervous. She's the only one asking the right questions. My throat tightened. He saw everything. While my family dismissed me, he was quietly collecting the truth. The lawyer spoke gently. He believed you were being wrong. He wanted to make sure you had the proof even if he wasn't here. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't too much. I was right, and they knew it. That's why they pushed me out, because I was the only risk. I left that office a different person. Not louder, not angrier. Just certain. I didn't rush. I didn't confront them. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me react. I waited. I studied every document. Built a timeline. Hired a lawyer who understood quiet cases, the kind that don't need drama to win. When everything was ready, we filed. No warning, no discussion. Just truth delivered in legal form. The first call came within hours. My brother, his voice was sharp, panicked. "What is this? Are you insane?" I let it ring. Then my mother crying now. "Why are you doing this to us?" Silence. Finally, my father, angry, controlled, but shaking underneath. "You've gone too far?" I listened to every voicemail. Every excuse. Every attempt to twist the story. But I didn't respond. Because for once, I wasn't chasing their approval. I was letting the truth chase them. The case moved forward quietly. No shouting, no scenes. Just documents, signatures, facts. Their lawyer tried to delay, deny, deflect. But evidence doesn't get tired, and lies don't stay consistent. When the forgery report came in, it was over. When the bank records were verified, it was finished. When the court acknowledged the fraud, it was final. They lost everything they tried to hide. The property deal was reversed. Funds were frozen, and the story they buried became official record. I didn't go to see them. I didn't need closure from people who never valued me. Weeks later, I stood outside Mr. Kareem's house, empty now, quiet. I sat on the same step where he used to feed the stray cats. For a long time, I said nothing. Then I whispered, "Thank you," because he didn't just leave me an inheritance. He gave me something my own family never did. Proof. Validation. Truth. They called me too much to handle, but the truth. I was never the problem. I was the only one brave enough to see my family was lying the moment they refused to meet my eyes. I just didn't know how far they had gone. Too much to handle. That label followed me like a shadow. Every time I asked about the missing money, Every time I questioned the rushed sale of my grandmother's house. Every time I pointed out that something felt wrong, they didn't answer. They dismissed. Then they isolated. And finally, they erased me. The last thing my mother said before closing the door was, "You ruin everything you touch." I didn't argue, because deep down I was tired of proving I wasn't the problem. So I left, not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly, and that's what hurt them the most later, the silence they thought meant defeat. Life after them was hard, but honest. No pretending. No walking on eggshells. Just me rebuilding from zero. But even then, something inside me wouldn't rest. Not anger. Not revenge. Just unfinished truth. Then one morning, a message arrived that didn't belong in my new, small life. A legal notice. I almost ignored it. Thought it was a mistake. Until I saw the name. Mr. Kareem. The one person who never treated me like I was too much. The one who listened when I spoke, even when I doubted myself. He had passed away. And somehow, he had chosen me. When I walked into the lawyer's office, I expected confusion. What I found instead was clarity. "He left everything to you?" the lawyer said. "But that's not why you're here." He slid a sealed envelope across the table. "He wanted you to have this?" I opened it slowly. Inside it was the truth my family tried to bury with me. Documents. Copies, evidence. Every doubt I ever had confirmed. My grandmother's house wasn't just sold unfairly. It was stolen. Her signature had been forged. Not once but multiple times. The dates didn't match. The witnesses were questionable. The paperwork had been altered just enough to pass, unless someone looked closely. Mr. Kareem had looked closely. There were notes written in careful handwriting. I saw the document exchange at night. They seemed nervous when she asked questions. She knows something is wrong. He had been watching everything unfold from across the street. Not interfering. Just recording. Waiting. Trusting that one day, I would need the truth more than anyone else. My chest felt tight. All those nights I doubted myself. All those times they made me feel crazy. It wasn't in my head. It was real. And they knew I was getting close. That's why they pushed me out. Not because I was difficult. Because I was dangerous to their secret. I didn't cry. Not anymore. Instead, something inside me settled. For the first time, I wasn't chasing answers. I had them. Now it was time to decide what to do with them. I chose patience. No commotional messages. No dramatic return. Just action. I hired a lawyer and handed over everything. We didn't rush. We verified every detail. Matched signatures. Tracked transactions. Built a timeline so clean it didn't need explanation. By the time we filed the case, it wasn't a question anymore. It was a conclusion waiting to be confirmed. The reaction from my family came exactly as expected. Shock first. Then anger. Then fear. My brother called nonstop. My mother left crying voicemails. My father tried to sound calm, but I could hear the panic breaking through. "You've misunderstood. What can fix this privately? Don't destroy the family." The family? The same one that threw me out like I was nothing. I didn't answer. Because I finally understood something important. Silence isn't weakness when you know the truth is loud enough. The legal process was slow, but steady. Every delay they tried only made them look worse. Every excuse collapsed under evidence. When the forgery report came back confirmed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not joy, not revenge. Just peace. The court ruled the property transfer invalid. The assets were frozen. And the truth, undeniable, documented, permanent, stood where I once stood alone. They didn't lose everything, but they lost control. They lost the story they created. And most of all, they lost the ability to pretend I was the problem. I never went back. No final conversation. No emotional closure. Because closure isn't something they get to give me anymore. Weeks later, I visited Mr. Kareem's house. It was empty, but it didn't feel lonely. I sat on the step where he used to sit, watching the street like he understood every story passing by. "I got it," I said softly. "Everything you wanted me to see." The wind moved gently, like an answer I didn't need to hear. They said I was too much to handle. But the truth? I was the only one they couldn't control. And in the end, that's exactly what exposed moment my father said. "We're done with you." I realized something terrifying. They weren't angry. They were afraid. Afraid of me. Not because I shouted. Not because I caused chaos. But because I refused to ignore what didn't make sense. I remember standing in the living room, holding those property papers, asking one simple question. Why does Grandma's signature look different here? No one answered. My mother looked away. My brother laughed nervously. My father stepped forward and took the papers from my hand, like I had crossed a line I didn't understand. "You're imagining things again," he said. Again. That word stayed with me. Because it wasn't the first time they made me feel like my reality was wrong. Every time I noticed something off, they'd twist it. "You're overthinking. You're too emotional. You're making problems out of nothing." And slowly I started questioning myself instead of them. Until that night. The night they told me to leave. No discussion. No chance to explain. Just a quiet decision they had probably made long before I even walked into that room. I packed in silence. Because deep down, I knew. This wasn't about me being too much. This was about me being the only one who didn't fit into their lie. Life outside that house was colder than I expected. Not just physically, emotionally. There's a different kind of loneliness when you realize your own family chose peace over truth. And you were the price. But loneliness also does something else. It sharpens you. It forces you to sit with your thoughts, without anyone there to silence them. And the more I sat with mine, the clearer everything became. The timelines didn't match. The urgency around selling the house didn't make sense. And the way they shut me down, it wasn't irritation. It was control. Then came the letter. By then, I had learned not to expect anything good from official envelopes. But this one felt different. Inside was a name I hadn't thought about in months. Mr. Karim. I closed my eyes for a second, remembering how he used to nod at me like he knew something I didn't. Turns out, he did. At the lawyer's office, everything felt too calm for what I was about to hear. "He left you everything?" the lawyer said. I didn't react, because I already knew this wasn't about money. It was about something else. Something bigger. He handed me a box. Not a file. A box. Heavy. Organized. Intentional. I opened it slowly. And just like that, the world I had been questioning finally answered back. Inside were years of observation. Not guesses. Not opinions. Proof. Documents showing the original ownership of my grandmother's house. Copies of the updated versions, with subtle but critical differences. Side-by-side comparisons of signatures. Expert notes. Even timestamps of when certain documents were accessed and altered. My heart was pounding, but my mind was calm. Because this wasn't chaos anymore. This was structure. This was truth laid out carefully, patiently waiting for me. There were also recordings. Not secret conversations, just background moments. Voices raised late at night. Arguments about, what if she finds out? My name mentioned more than once. She's asking too many questions. We need to shut this down. Get her out before it becomes a problem. I stopped listening. I didn't need more. I already understood everything. They didn't push me out because I was difficult. They pushed me out because I was close. Too close. I sat there for a long time, holding the weight of it all. Not crying, not shaking, just absorbing. Because this was the moment everything changed. Not when they kicked me out, not when I struggled alone. But now, when I had the truth and the choice, I chose control. No emotional reactions, no rushed decisions, just quiet, calculated steps. I worked with the lawyer to build a case that didn't rely on feelings. Only facts. Every document verified. Every claim backed. Every timeline aligned so perfectly it couldn't be questioned. And when it was time, we didn't warn them. We didn't negotiate, we filed. The response was immediate. Panic. Real panic. Not the kind they used to fake when I questioned them. This was different. This was fear of exposure. My phone lit up for days. Calls, messages, voicemails. My mother crying. My brother angry. My father trying to sound in control, but failing. Why are you doing this? You're misunderstanding everything. We're still your family. Family. The word felt empty now. Because family doesn't silence you when you're right. They don't erase you to protect a lie. I didn't respond, because I wasn't part of their story anymore. I was the ending. The case unfolded exactly as we planned. Every piece of evidence did its job. No drama. No scenes. Just quiet truth doing what it always does when given the chance. Winning. The court ruling wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Fraud confirmed. Documents invalid. Assets frozen. And just like that, everything they built on lies started collapsing. I didn't feel victory. I felt release. Like something heavy I had been carrying for years, finally slipped off my shoulders. Weeks later, I found myself standing outside Mr. Karim's house again. The same door. The same quiet street. But everything felt different. I sat on the step, just like he used to. And for the first time, I smiled. Not because I won, but because I finally understood. He didn't just leave me evidence. He left me power. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that waits. The kind that lets the truth speak when everyone else tries to bury it. They said I was too much to handle. But in the end, I was simply the one thing they couldn't control, and the only truth they couldn't everything. They still tried to act like I owed them something. One final message came through weeks after the case closed. Not angry this time, not defensive. Just careful. Wu made mistakes. My father said in a voice note. But we're still your family. We can fix this. I listened to it twice. Not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to understand how far denial can go, even after the truth is undeniable. Fix this. There was nothing left to fix. You can't rebuild trust on top of silence, manipulation, and years of making someone feel small for seeing clearly. For a moment, I almost responded. Not to argue, not to hurt them. Just to ask one question. Why was I the only one who cared about what was right? But I didn't send it. Because I already knew the answer. Caring would have cost them everything, and they chose everything over me. So instead, I did what they never expected from me. I moved on without looking back. No anger. No revenge left. Just distance and a quiet kind of strength they never understood. They thought I was too much to handle. But the truth is, I was never asking for too much. I was just asking for honesty.